Hi and welcome to this part 3 of replacing the steering head bearings in my Benelli 1130 TnT. In this particular video I'll be fitting the new bearings to the steering head assembly on the bike, so I'll be fitting the outer races top and bottom to the steering stem here, and I'll be fitting the inner races to the triple clamp assembly and then reassembling the entire front end. Hopefully everything will go well, so let's get into it. So here's the steering head bearing kit that I've got. It's a pyramid part, a BR36, and I'm told this is the correct one for my particular bike. It also suits a range of other Japanese bikes. So in here we've got two NSK tapered roller bearings. They're a two-piece bearing, and also we've got two seals that keep the dirt and dust out of the bearings when the bearing's installed on the bike. Also comes with a little bit of grease, but I don't think that there's really enough grease there to pack these bearings properly, so I'll probably be using my own grease with this kit. So there you have it. The next part of the job, I'll be actually pressing the outer races into the steering head assembly. Now there are several different ways that you can actually fit this outer race. You can either tap it in, or you can use some form of a bearing fitting tool, which is what I'm going to actually be using. So what I'm going to be doing is I'll just get this started in there, and now I'll get my tool. Now these bearings do need to be fitted dry. You shouldn't put any lubricant on them because they're actually just a slight interference fit. Now it's not going in quite square, which is a bit annoying, but so I'll just loosen this off a bit. So I'm just going to square it up a little bit. Let's just see where that's sitting. Now it's still sitting up a little bit on this side, so I might just give it a manual tap on this side. And there we have it. The upper outer race is fitted. This one's going to be a little trickier to get in because it's upside down. So to get started is going to be a bit difficult. Again, it's not going in quite straight. I just need to loosen this off. Okay, let's see how that is. That looks pretty good. Okay, now it's time to fit the inner race to the triple clamp assembly. I just wipe everything down, make sure it's dirt, dust and grease free. So first we'll fit the actual dust seal for the lower bearing there. And I've marked these packets with bottom and top so that we keep the matched pairs of bearings together. So obviously it goes on this way, since the taper. And I've just made up this special tool using a bit of alloy. I've cleaned it up and it's just so that I can tap it on. Not quite all the way on yet. Okay, the dust seal is now tight, so that bearing is on. Okay, we're now ready to assemble. I've greased both bearings quite heavily, and I've also greased the outer races, so I'll just slide this in. That on, put my dust seal on. Now my nut. Okay, now we need to torque this down to around 8 Newton meters. Now, with this tool, of course, we can't use a torque wrench, but we can sort of get it pretty close. So what I'll do is, to get the grease out from underneath the bearing, I'll just tighten this up, slacken it off again, push that up against the stop, and then just using one finger, that should be roughly our torque. What I'll do is I'll take the bike for a ride and take the triple clamps off and just recheck the torque on this after a test ride. Okay, now we fit the lock nut. Now we'll fit the top triple clamp. Just put the nut in. Now we don't want to do this up tight until we've put the 2 fork legs in. Okay, let's slide in the first fork leg. And now we'll just tighten up the lower triple clamp bolts. Now I'll do this side. Okay, now we'll tighten up the top nut. Now I can do these upper triple clamp bolts. Well, that's the steering head bearings really done. All that remains to be done is all the mundane work of putting on the front wheel, the brakes, refitting the instruments, which I only took off because I was doing some MIG welding up here, and being sensitive electronic gear, I was a bit worried that they might be fried by the current of the MIG welder. I also took out the ECU, so I have to refit that too. But apart from that, really everything that I set out to do is done. Once I've taken the bike for a test ride and done a few Ks on it, I'll just recheck the steering head bearings and maybe retorque them if required. But really, the job is completed. So that's how you change the steering head bearings on a Benelli 1130 TnT. Hopefully I haven't made any errors in the installation. The bearing kit that I got certainly seemed to fit okay. There were no issues in dimensional differences between them and the original ball bearing steering race. So I was quite pleased with it. There's a little bit of stiction, but that really comes from the dust seals. The dust seals being rubber will take a little while to bed in, but certainly the stiction from those dust seals is no worse than the stiction from the dust seals on the original ball bearings. One little note on the original ball bearings is that the grease had completely dried up and was certainly, there was hardly any indication that it ever had been greased, so I suspect they had only been lightly greased when they were originally installed at the factory. So that's it, another service video out of the way. Oh, and we're out of lockdown here in Melbourne, so I actually went for a ride last weekend on both Saturday and Sunday. Managed to have some issues with the Gilera, which I'll be attending to in a future video. The bike started flooding about 50 k's from home, and I had to nurse it all the way home. Looks like either a stuck float, or else there's a hole in the float, or perhaps some rubbish in the float valve seat itself. Anyway, that's another video. So with no further ado, that's it for this video, and I'll catch you next time.